Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Noethling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become the confident leader and take your business and your life to the next level. Today, I am so excited to have with me Suzanne Culberg. And let me tell you a little bit about Suzanne. She raves that she has over 500 podcast episodes. I'm right there with you, my dear. She says she's socially awkward introvert when she's online. She's a sweary-fairy, though she says that she'll keep it clean for us today. She loves sassy t-shirts and prefers comfortable over looking good. She's from Sydney, Australia, and sometimes she gets booking just for her accent. And when you hear it, you'll see why. It's just so cool. So she loves musicals, Ted Lasso, and she can drop a pop culture reference into every episode. So we are so excited to be today talking about why we should say no to others and yes to self. So please join me in welcoming Suzanne Culberg as my guest. Suzanne.
Thank you so much for having me, Vicki. And I was going to say, it's what we call sprummer here. So it's technically spring, but it's more like summer. So I am a sweaty fairy today.
Sweary-fairy. Yes. Well, Australia and Georgia seem to have similar spring, summer kind of weather because, even in December, we can have 75 and 80 degree one day craziness and then snow the next day. So
It's wild. It's wild.
Yes.
And in terms of wacky t-shirts today, I have for you, Houston, I have so many problems.
That's awesome. I love it. So before we get started with the meat of the questions, I always ask two questions. One, I sort of gave away the answer. Where do you live? Where do you call home? Have you always been in Sydney?
No, right now I'm in Sydney. And for reference for people, I'm either 1 hour from the Harbour Bridge or 3 hours from the Harbour Bridge, depends on traffic, and there's no in between. But I'm actually from Tasmania, so the tiny little island that gets missed off the bottom. That's where I call home. That's where the rest of my family is. But my husband and my kids and I have been hopping around the mainland for the last, since 2007. So like 17 years now.
Wow. But you get back to Tasmania?
We go back to visit, yes, but
yes.
We did go back to live. So long story, we left for 1 year, as a lot of Tasmanians do when you're young. And the 1 year became 10. And then my parents' insistence, they were like, please move home. And we moved home. We lasted 10 months. And I was like, I love where we grew up, but the convenience and the ability of things to be able to do, like where I live now, I can hop on the train, I can be in the city, I can see the theatre, I can decide on the day.
Yeah.
Whereas in Tasmania, you've got to plan and book and get flights and accommodation. And I just know, I just like to be able to flit around as I see fit. And that gets enticing.
I totally agree. I moved to Georgia from Pennsylvania, from Pittsburgh. Now, gosh, since 86. And so I've lived here longer than I lived in Pittsburgh, but I had an opportunity when my second child was born for us to move back home. And I was like, no, I love
visiting. They say
visiting,
you can never go home again. And it's so true. It's not the same. And yeah, we did 10 months, and to move interstate in Australia, especially down to Tasmania, because you've literally got to go across an island, like all your stuff has to get shipped on a boat and it's expensive and time consuming. And I was like, yeah, it was a big interruption financially, but like, no, love visiting you, but don't want to live here.
Yeah. So I didn't really give them much of a background as to what really drove Suzanne to do what you do today. So give us a little bit about your journey and the different maybe twists and turns that took along the way to make you
It's
convinced to be who you are and what you're doing.
it's a very long story. So originally, I was going to be a doctor, so I went to medical school, and I did everything that my parents said, and I didn't like medical school. Like from day one, I was like, I just don't want to do this, you know. But the condition, people pleaser, good girl archetype, you know, it's fine. You just don't like the school. Once you graduate, it'll be different, and you know. So I stayed the path. And then I got to my 5th year. So here in Australia, medical school was a 6-year degree, depending on which university you attend. And I was just like, I can't do this. Like, even when you graduate, like people were like, just stay, it's only one more year. I was like, but you graduate a doctor of nothing. You've got to do an intern year, 3 years of residency, 10 years of
Mm-hmm.
registrar training. It's like 13 more years to go. And I think that's the first time I honestly just said no. I don't want to stay on the path that's been laid out for me. So I left medical school to become a personal trainer of all things. And I did that for a while. And then I went back to school and did teaching. And I lasted 6 months at that. Like, hats off anyone who's listening to this who's a teacher of like school age children. Like, I guess I teach now, but people who actually want to learn, it's a whole different thing. So that was an adventure. And then I went into a government job at a call center. Now, you think you can get abused online? You try answering phones for a living.
Oh, I
So
know
I
the.
did that. You know, that's the
I
of
do.
somebody who knows. So I
I
did that for
do.
about 8 years, and then I had my children. I went back to that job, but the travel became too much because we lived interstate away from our family, had to put the kids in childcare. No shame or shade to people who do that, but it was over an hour's drive to get to my work. And when you put one child in childcare, if you run late, I don't know what's like over here, but it's quite expensive. It's
It's taking
like,
them to college. It's college.
yeah, per minute if you're late. And so, long
Yeah.
story short, my husband was fly in, fly out. So it was me at home with the 2 kids, and I was like, this is ridiculous. I can't do this anymore. So I was going to be a lady of leisure. It lasted like 2 months because, as much as I love my children, I need some kind of adult interaction. So I started as a executive assistant, so doing customer service. I'm not tech savvy in any way, shape, or form, and ended up getting fired from that job. That's a whole other story. And then I trained to coach myself because people were asking me, they're like, you're different. Like, but not you're different as in you've changed, shut up, but you've changed as in like you never used to say no, you never used to speak up. You're always like the demure good one. And
Mm-hmm.
now you're just like, how about no? And that just became my career. So I moved around for a long time and eventually settled in this.
Fantastic. Yeah, we have a lot of similarities in our life, that's for sure. So let's just get right into this. Why is it so hard for people to say no?
Conditioning, as in
Mm.
your family of origin, your society, it is polite to say yes, to be the good girl, to be unassuming, to help others.
Mm.
And I think sometimes we equate saying no with being rude or abrasive or not wanting to help. And like
Mm.
part of my mission is to educate that that's not the case. So
Right.
conditioning, but also we want people to like us. And people don't tend to like you if you ask them to do something and they say no. It's, you know, or the biggest thing actually, avoiding confrontation.
Yeah.
If someone says, hey, can you do this, and you say no, there could potentially be a confrontation. Whereas if you just keep quiet, smile, nod, say yes, do the thing, then it's smooth sailing. There's no external confrontation, but what's happening inside is a whole other story.
That is so true. So how does worrying about what other people think hold us back? Why is that? Why are we people pleasers from the start?
Because, as I said, because we're conditioned to be, because
Mm.
it's the status quo, and because we put a lot of thought, you know, sometimes people will make an offhand comment and then we'll take that to mean something. So like I I don't wear makeup, I brush my hair, like, but I don't style my hair. I wear my wacky t-shirts. I live in sneakers. And some people kind of find that quite affronting. They're like, oh, you didn't take care of your appearance. I'm like, but this is me. I don't gussy up at all. If I'm going to attend a wedding, I'll put on a dress or whatever, but I still don't like toe the line, so to speak. And some people find it's like, but I spent all this time doing this, but were you even asked to? Or does the person even care? So I think sometimes we put a lot of effort into doing stuff that we've always done. It reminds me, have you ever heard that story about the lady in the casserole dish that when
No.
she's making, okay, it's a parable. I don't know where it
Okay.
came from. I always like to give attribution, but I don't know whose original story this is. But this woman watches her mum make the casserole. No, it's a little kid. Mum's making dinner, and the little kid says, "Hey, mum, why do you cut the ends off the casserole before you put it in the dish?" She's like, "I don't know. Your grandmother always did it. Ask her." Like, so she goes to grandma's house on Sunday, and she's like, "Grandma, why do you cut the ends off the casserole before you put it in the dish?" And she's like, "I don't know. My mother always did it. And so why don't you ask her?" So this child's fortunate that her great grandmother's still alive. So she goes to ask her, and she's like, "Great grandmother, why do you cut the ends off the casserole before you put it in the dish?" And then she just starts laughing. And she's like, "What's the secret?" She's like, "Well, when we were younger, our oven was really small. So the casserole dish was really small. So if I didn't cut the ends off the roast, it wouldn't fit in the oven." And I think so many times we have just done something because we've seen our parents and our grandparents and down the line, and nobody's ever thought to ask, why do we do it this
Why?
way?
Mm.
And I think that's how people pleasing becomes generational, or conditioning becomes generational, and no one ever says, why do we do it like this?
Mhm. Well, and I think it's true that in this newer generation, the kids tend to ask more questions and don't get because I said so, or this is because this is how you're going to do it. They actually get answered, well, this is why we do it. And, and so now I think, I know my grandsons, I can't just give him or give them a pat answer. I have to go into a lot more detail, which is good for me being a speaker trainer to be able to speak in more detail. But it also is telling those little ones that, yes, it's okay to ask questions. And the more questions that you ask to get clarity, the better you are. And so sometimes people just give you one answer. And whenever you ask them, well, what else? Why else? Why? They get taken aback, just as you were talking about.
Well, I wonder if, and I've never made this connection before, Vicky, but if, because, my children are young and the age of Google now, if I give them an answer that they're still sitting with or they're still questioning, they can and do just go and Google it. When I was growing up, that wasn't a thing. My parents' answer was law, and you weren't allowed to question. Like, I remember, like, don't ask questions. And because I said so. And sometimes, not so much anymore, my kids are older, but I can remember in times of frustration, we all have the 3-year-old, why? And I always did endeavor to try and answer. And sometimes I would get just so frustrated that I'd be like, because I said so. And then I'd be like, oh, I just channeled my mother. I have to take a moment,
I know.
But now, like, and it's funny too, raising children in the digital age, so age appropriate things like cartoons like Shrek or The Simpsons, which kind of have the adult humor and the kid humor, when I was a kid could get away with because there wasn't the internet. But my kids are quite savvy and they're bordering that line. So sometimes I'll be like, do not Google that. And if you do, I take no responsibility for what you find, because they'll be like, what does that mean? And they're kind of like, it doesn't fall at that age where it doesn't quite land in the kid land.
Mhm.
And I'm like, so it's a very difficult or different way of parenting than when I was a
Yeah.
kid, where the joke just went straight over your head, or there was no ability to go, what does it mean?
Yes. Yes. So how do we stop worrying about what other people think? Do we just condition ourselves to not care, or
I think it's knowing that we do care. Like,
Mm.
sometimes people are like, I just don't care, or I have a joke, I have a mug. It's like, I give no because I'm inappropriate.
Mhm.
But the thing is, You do, but it's choosing where to allocate your care. So, like, say some random on the internet who I've never met sends me a message, and it happens from time to time, and they find me offensive
Yes.
or whatever it is. Like, there's no shortage. Maybe my call center days have helped with this, but there's no shortage of people in the world who are going to be unhappy with you. And that's a different allocation of care as opposed to, say, my husband or a good friend who's like, that was a bit much. So it's choosing where, because we
Mm-hmm.
only have like so much allocation of capacity and energy. So if some random on the internet who doesn't know me from Adam, who hasn't taken the time to read or listen, who's taken offense at my title of my podcast or the title of my post and has done this whole rant, it's like, do I actually want to bother responding? And with the age
Right.
of the internet, you can decide. You can bless and block, like, you can remove them. I have a YouTube channel. What I love about YouTube is you can hide the user from the channel. And what that means is you don't see them anymore. No one else sees them, but they're not blocked and banned. So they can be commenting on every video till they're whatever content, and they get no response from you because they don't know that you can't see them, and neither can anyone else. I wish more social media had that as an
Yeah.
option. Gold. But you get to decide, like, and then if someone does come to you, like, who's close and says, I found that rude or pushy or dismissive or whatever it is, don't immediately dismiss them or I don't care. It's just kind of like, really allow yourself to sit with it for a minute, because sometimes it will be like, you can really notice that's not a me thing, that's a them thing. Like, they have their own stuff going on, and I can have so much compassion for you, but I'm not going to change me. Or there might be other times where they're like, they might be onto something there. That was a bit brash or abrupt or whatever. And then you can sit with it, but it's not that reactive. It's more
Right.
responsive. And then you get to decide where you allocate your responses to. So it's not like you don't care, I'm doing my own thing, because I think that's like bordering on narcissism or something.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to be like
Yeah.
that.
Like,
But you also don't want to be like that reactive, like, I want everyone to like me, so I'm going to be so nice that I lose me in the process.
I remember when my mother-in-law, who's since passed, but when she was in her upper 80s, and she would just say whatever whatever came to her mind. And sometimes it was not appropriate, or it was kind of hurtful and brash. And you think, 20 years ago, you would never have said that. But it was almost, and we just put it off to say, well, has the privilege of old age to be able to do that. But I think we do have to, and especially as I'm working with the younger folks, I do think it's important for people to understand how you say things. Even saying no, how you say no can make a person happy that you said no, if it's in a way that makes them not feel disrespected or,
Yes.
offended or whatnot. It's I have a good reason for my no, and you need to respect that I'm allowed to have a no.
That's such a great example. So some people say no is a complete sentence. I'm not disagreeing with that. However, no, as you said, abrupt, disconcerting, disjointing, maybe offensive. So say you say, Suzanne, I'd love to have you on my show. And then you give me the recording time, and it's like 2 a.m. for me, and this happens. I'm in Australia, sometimes finding a
I
time
just
that
had
matches up.
I had one for 1 a.m. I was like, you don't want to interview me at 1 a.m.
So how you say that? Thank you so much for inviting me. I'd love to be a guest. That time doesn't quite work for me. Do you have anything else available? So it's a no to this request. Or say, for example, someone says, I know you work with leadership. Could you give a presentation at our next board meeting about this? And the thought makes you want to die inside. You're not going to say that, though. You might be like, I appreciate being asked. I'm not prepared at this stage. It's too soon. I need longer, or that topic isn't the most aligned. Like, you can give the honest answer and what you would like instead, rather than just this no. So like, my husband is speaking at an event next month, November. So it's like next week now at the time of recording this. It's getting up. And the way that they asked him, he didn't want to speak on the topic they gave. And he was just basically like, I appreciate this opportunity. This isn't actually my strong suit. Like, I could do it, but I think you'd be better served by someone else. And they said, well, what would you like to talk about? Like, it opened up a discussion. He's like,
Yeah.
actually, I think this is really important. So now he's writing a speech that he wants to give, not
Yeah.
something he's been pigeonholed into doing that he's capable of, but somebody else would be a much better speaker for the people who are in the audience.
Very good example. Yeah. And that really ties into saying yes to yourself. Having a yes because you're trying to please people or make sure you get all the gigs or whatnot is not going to serve you well if he would speak and not be perceived as great as he is, right? If he was on a topic that really wasn't his mainstay.
It doesn't put you in a great light because
Mhm.
sometimes I think, you and I are both podcast hosts, podcast guesting. Some people just seem to want to get on every show. And I'm like, that's not in service to anyone because you might have them all on your belt, like all these notches. But if you're on a show that is opposed to your message or you don't agree with, the host's audience is going to be like, why did they bring her or him? Like,
Yeah.
they're confused. It's not going to bring you more people. So it's like by saying yes and saying no, like filtering, is this the right opportunity for me and for them? So it's a win-win. Allows you to be like, oh, is this a good use of my time and energy? Because we can't be everywhere. We can't listen to
Yeah.
everything. Like, I know that I'm going to leave this earth with a to read list that's like every time I buy a book, I'm like, the ones on my shelf are like, what are you doing? What about me? So we're always multi-passionate people. And
Yes.
I think sometimes we say yes because we have this FOMO that another opportunity is not going to come, or like people won't think of me again. But the way that you say it, so people will often ask me to speak on summits or podcasts or things. And I love that. I love it's so exciting. I'm genuine. Thank you so much for inviting me. I don't
Yeah.
think this is the best fit for me. However, I know someone, because that's the other thing too. You make
Nice.
referrals, you
Yes.
make connections, and then finding, are you going to find your audience here? Like, someone asked me to speak on a summit. I can't remember what it was, but it was just like, this isn't the best fit for me. I'm not going to bring the right aligned people for you. However, I know a person. And I think, and then the next day I get an invite for something that's so much more aligned. So sometimes I think, I don't know, it sounds a little woo, but like the universe or whatever is
Yeah.
kind of like saying, people was always like, oh, the universe is against me or whatever. It's like, I think sometimes it's like, does she really want this? Like, is she really going to
Yes.
be behind her word? And by saying no to something and trusting that something more aligned will come along, or you can just take the weekend off or whatever. Or other thing too is sometimes I'll go as a participant. It's like, I might not be the best speaker, but you can make so much great connections as a participant or in the audience, rather than taking a spot on the stage when it's not the best alignment for you.
Yeah, that's right. Because it does impact your brand where you get out there. So why are boundaries so important? I
I
know this
think a
could
lot
be
of
a whole
people
podcast.
I think a lot of people fear the term boundary because they think fence, they think barricade, they think boundaries keeping everything out.
Mm,
But a boundary, and I can't remember who the quote's attributed to, but it's like, it's the distance in which I can love you and me simultaneously. So a boundary is also about containing yourself and keeping yourself in as much as it is about keeping other people out. And really good boundaries. Like, for example, you have excellent boundaries for your show. You send reminders, you send an email the day before, this is what's required, this is how long it'll go for. Like, sometimes people think, oh, if I do that, I'll look demanding or I'll look like this. But boundaries allow everyone to know the flow. How long is it going to go
right.
for? When do I need to be there? What sort of equipment's required? Here's your backup in case we lose connection because we work on the internet. All these sorts of things. People feel safe with boundaries, and then they can
Yeah.
decide, actually, no, it's not for me. So say you are, running a summit or you have a podcast and you're like, I need you to be there 5 minutes before. And people are like, oh, no, I only ever turn up on the hour. You're just not a fit. I think by stating your
Yes.
boundaries, you get to decide, are we a fit? Yes or no? It's no one's wrong or bad, but like cancellation policies, a lot of people feel so bad about upholding those. But say, for example, you have a 24-hour cancellation policy and someone legitimately gets sick, that whether you that charge the full fee and it's forfeited or there's 50% or something, like actually upholding that, because you are in business. If I go to the supermarket, I buy a loaf of bread, then I get some stomach bug and I can't eat it, and the loaf of bread goes moldy, I don't march back to the supermarket when I'm better and go, can I have my money back? Like, we don't do that. Whereas
Right.
online, we tend to be so like, I don't want to be this and I don't want to be that. But you have these clear guidelines, boundaries. What's your cancellation policy? What's your refund policy? What can people do? What can they expect?
Yeah.
Everybody feels safe and they can make the conscious decision, do I want to step into this place or not?
Yeah. I know for my summits, I have a $200 refundable. And if you show up, you get your $200 back, because it's, as an organizer, it's such a burden to try to fill in the space of either 25 or 55 minutes, depending on what it is. Not to say that we can't do it, but it's not great for the audience. They expected this person to be speaking on this topic, and now you have somebody else or nobody.
I love that. See, and one of my friends, when she runs her summits, the tickets to the summit are free. Like, technically it's free to attend, but she charges $100 to secure your place, and then when you show, you get your money back. And I'm like, because people in the online world, you tend to say yes, oh, that looks cool, and then you forget, or you don't add it to your calendar, and you've created this and curated this and you have the event ready and then no one's there. So it's kind of like, if you're clear, this is how it is. And always your speaker. I've also spoken at events before where the idea is, you bring your audience, and it's like, you pay $200. If you get 20 registrants, you get that back. If you don't, then they get $200, so they can put that money towards Facebook ads or whatever it is to bring more people to the event. Some people get so offended. They get so bent out of shape. They're like, how are you doing this? I'm like, it makes sense from a business point of view. Why do you have a summit? To bring people together. If you don't bring your people, then financially they are at a loss.
Yeah, that is right. So the last question that I have is, what do you wish you knew when you were 20?
That the people who are meant for me, love me, get me, vibe with me, however you want to word it, like, my people love me regardless.
Yeah.
I don't have to. I can be human. I have moments where things happen and they're like, oh, they just get it. Whereas when I was 20, I was always like, I felt like I was walking this tightrope of having to, appear in a certain way. And if I let somebody down, I was the worst person in the world or whatever. Some people, I know I'm 40, are going to think I'm the worst person in the world, regardless of what I do. Like, I remember my dad saying when I was a kid, I never understood it until recently. He was like, you could give away $50 notes and somebody would bring it back saying theirs was crinkled. And I was like, yeah, that's so true. Some people, I swear, they walk the world and they're like looking for the cloud. Whereas I tend to be like, I'm looking for the silver lining. And it's not my job or my responsibility or even my inkling to have anything to do with those people. And as a 20-year-old, I used to try and like save everyone. And now I'd just be like, do your thing over there. Like, I'm awesome and you're awesome too. But we're not a match on this.
And I think that's why I love so much about the entrepreneur world, is that we don't have to work with jerks and things, after being in corporate for so many years. And you had to work with you. And even in school, I can remember having a conversation with my youngest daughter, and she didn't get along with, or she just didn't vibe with her one teacher. And she had to have that class. It was a core class. And it's like, I'm sorry, there are just people that you're going to have to work with that you are not going to like, and you cannot let that keep you from being a success. Or
I love that.
And but at a certain point, you can make that decision of, no, I'm not going to work with you. But
I think that's something I revise regularly, and I let people go from my schedule regularly and my roster regularly. And it's never fun. It's never easy. It can be awkward. It can be difficult. But if I look at my calendar and I don't be like, oh my gosh, I get to speak to Vicki today. Like, if I don't have that, like, obviously sometimes the work we do is challenging, but if it's like they're going to be late, or they're going to want to go over, or they're going to dump too much stuff onto me, if I look at it, I'm like, I just don't want to work with this person, then the freedom and flexibility to end the contract early with grace and love and wishing them all the best is something that you don't get to do, as you said, in a 9 to 5 or a corporate job. And that's one of the things, although challenging in the moment, that I love about being entrepreneur, because then it opens the space for the more aligned person for me and for them to find the fit that they want to work with.
Yeah. Well, it has been so great chatting with you, and you shared so many good points. I hope people that are out there have taken note and really take to heart some of the things, because it's okay to say no, and you need to be able to say yes to yourself. Make sure that that no is done in a way that's not degrading or disrespectful, but understand that it's okay to say no.
100%.
Well, for those of you that are listening, you know that you should have been taking notes all along, but go grab a paper and pencil real quick, because it's time for me to share contact information for Suzanne. All this information is available on my YouTube channel, Vicki Noethling. So if you haven't done so, please subscribe. But you also can get it on the findyourleadershipconfidence.com. So the website is SuzanneCulberg.com. That's SuzanneCulberg.com. Facebook, you can search her name, Suzanne Culberg. Instagram is Suzanne_Culberg. YouTube is at Suzanne Culberg. And I will let Suzanne tell you what you can find when you go to her website, a little bit about her emails and newsletter, and also a free masterclass. So it's all yours.
So my website, as you said, Suzanne Culberg. Love listening to you read it out, because you guys say Z, and we say Z. I'm like, how many podcasts have I been on? People have been like, oh, I've pronounced it wrong for you guys. It's the accent thing. When you head to my website, if you want to send me a message, I don't do DMs on social media. I think they're the inappropriate messages of the social media world. But I do have the most amazing contact page on my website, SuzanneCulberg.com/contact. It's fun. You'll know whether or not we're a fit when you read that page. Some people just send me a message because they find it amusing. I have my podcast on my website. I have all my offers. I basically list everything from free to paid in a lovely little line that's very, very organized. And yeah, I loved my emails. As I said, they rock, they're fun, they're unique content. I tend to message about once a week, and they're not just here's the latest podcast or here's my blog. If you do that, you do you. But I'm like, I only want to open an email if there's something unique or whatever about it. So I do love my email list, and that you can respond and I'll respond to you. So email. I was a pen pal lover when I was a child, so that hasn't changed as an adult.
Fantastic. Suzanne, it's been just such a pleasure chatting with you. Thank you for getting up early in Australia to chat this morning. But as always, I remind everyone that life is a journey, and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Noethling, signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.